Hey, good evening. It's 7:42 p.m. It is January 30th. It is Thursday evening, and I am about to just rip the circuit breaker out of the wall. It just keeps like shutting off, and I keep switching it back on, and then it keeps shutting off. And even when the lights are off, I don't have any appliances or nothing on right now. So I'm just trying to figure it out. And instead of getting upset about it, I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and just kick back, light a few candles, sit here in the dark, and just try to make the best of it. So anyway, I've been doing some thinking, of course, and I think it was last night or 2 nights ago, I made a video and I was talking about some of the things that were just kind of regurgitating from my mind. And, one of the things I don't like about dealing with things that, conflicts and stuff is like I don't like to bring things up. Okay, I really don't. But at the same time, you have to understand that I never got proper closure. I never got people, to tell me, hey, and I know what happened, okay? But it's the fact that you never got closure, you know? And it leaves a lot on a person. Like, I was thinking about some of the people that I used to like observe when I was growing up. I would say even growing up from like my teenage years all the way to my adult years. You'll see people walking around the streets, like homeless people, for example, and they're like thrashing around, yelling, and sometimes they're repeating like stories and situations that happened to them that they never got justice for. Okay, there's a lot of people who've been broken because of unresolved issues. And so, because they put me in a situation where, you're isolated and no one will ever come and fess up to it. You have to deal with the mental trauma on your own. So videos and releasing that in this form they're very therapeutic for me. So, a couple nights ago when I did make the video, I was reflecting on my anger towards my adoptive family, with the attitude of, throughout the years they knew that I was adopted. And I'd mentioned growing up, being bullied in school, in the neighborhood, and in certain situations. And, not, I had no idea. All these years, I had thought that I was the blood relations of my family. I never realized. And I thought that they're teasing and they're, sometimes what I would consider to be rather shocking kind of actions towards me. I just really thought it was just, kid stuff. I didn't realize how deep this issue is. And I remember going when I had mentioned, noticing the behavior that my brother-in-law, displayed towards my oldest sister Tanya. Even as a teenager, I realized that the relationship was somewhat abusive. I mean, and this is one of my points. I think people like my ex-brother-in-law. He wasn't my brother-in-law. They're not my family. But anyway, what I'm saying is, this is a good example of how men will use religion to abuse women. This is something that I had noticed in my sister Tanya, and many times, he would mention things about, the men being in charge. And this is where I see the problem. The problem is that we had a man who was associated with a white supremacist group who purposely married my sister, right? Possibly get to be spying, whatever, okay? But, his actions, showed it. Like all my life I've been observing people, and I realized that this was a person who took advantage of his position of what he looked at himself as a Christian man who felt entitled to mistreat my sister with the intention of using her for his financial comfort. You see what I'm saying? And so and I know that my sister did work, and he would tell her how to, use her money and this sort of stuff, which I understand. When you're in a couple, people discuss these sort of things, okay? But it almost seemed like their relationship was like more like a position of where she was extremely subservient, not a submissive wife like what they talk about in biblical terms, but like I'm talking like outright subservient. And I looked at this as very abusive. And and like I said, this is not me trying to, I think, hang on a second. Okay, I just wanted to make sure because I'm sitting here in the dark, right? And I don't know if I accidentally like stopped the recording. But this is where I'm saying is where people can get into situations where it's abusive. And sure enough, now I'm finding out that this man was actually a Nazi. He was a spy. So he purposely used my sister. And see, I understand that he played a big role in my targeting, right? My targeting. Um, and this is what upsets me so much because, like I said, we had this role playing. We had this role playing of people who knew had uh, bad intentions. Bad intentions. Growing up, I knew that my brother-in-law was somewhat. I looked at him as kind of tacky, really. I looked at him as kind of a tacky individual. And I know that my father didn't like him, like from the get-go. Like he seemed suspicious of this man. But, my dad figured, my sister Tanya was an adult. She can make her own decisions, and, she would marry whoever she wanted to. She's an adult. But I know that my dad expressed his dislike for him many times, as well as my mother expressed it several times. So, but it's funny how like you get this sick herd mentality about uh, who I was and my family turning against me and the whole it's just so beyond sick. And I do know that he played a huge role in it, and I do know that throughout the years he was associated with a lot of celebrities, which he would talk about a lot, and when I was around him. But but he would use what he liked about being a Christian is he liked the intermingling that he got. He liked the position that it got him. Okay. And he was somebody who abused that. Okay. And like I said, I have always looked at Christianity separately. Like, for people who felt like a connection, a sincere connection to God or whatever, then that's fine, But I'm saying is, you get a lot of people who do a lot of corrupt things, such as, the sick covert program that my brother-in-law was involved in, which, you know, also involved, people like my ex um, my ex-boyfriend, my son's father, and everything else. Which I look at this as so disrespectful on so many levels, right? It's so disrespectful. I understand when I was younger. See, the thing is, when you are growing up as a targeted individual, as somebody who is like a part of an experiment or whatever, in my case, okay, like I said, my reality was is that I was a Gordon. Like, that was my last name. This was my father. That was my mom. These were my brothers and sisters. And, I know that once they were married, like Jim and Tanya got married, they kind of moved away from it in a different town and everything. And I'd see them like on occasions, like, on holidays and stuff like that. And even though, I felt as though he was a little rough around the edges, I just accepted the fact that that was my sister, at the time, my sister's husband. And I just figured, whatever. But now I'm looking at this dude and I'm starting to realize and put things together. And really, I think why this is regurgitating in my mind is because it makes me sick. It makes me sick to my stomach to know that all this stuff was going on, and that so like it was completely wicked. It was completely evil. And during this time, my entire life, I was surrounded with this and thinking and I would pray for these people. I would be concerned about these people, even though I didn't see them very often because I looked at them as my family, right? come to find out these people were like nothing but malicious people. And what's funny is about people who are jealous of you and people who want to take things of yours or people who want to dominate you or have some sort of secret covert plan. Many times they'll come up and they'll say things like they'll compliment you on the very thing that they want to destroy. Like my brother-in-law, Jim, he could not stop. Every time I would see him, he would compliment me on how I looked and all this other stuff. Meanwhile, he's sitting here trying to get people to bully me, you know. But the thing is that he was so into this idea of Christian supremacy, you know, where you can be entitled. And this is what I saw a lot, like when I was in this community. Hang on a second. At points of my targeting where I believe people were, you know, kind of like getting together and trying to like bully me, right? I had no idea that people were even really aware that I even had a different religious view or whatever. I had no idea that any of this was going on. But still, you know, when people were starting to like conspire against me, you know, I do know that he played a huge role in it, you know, and I also know that throughout my years of existence of knowing Jim Culligan, you know, during the time when I was studying with Jehovah's Witnesses, he was just like hell bent about it and constantly trying to convert me to the Christian faith. Meanwhile, and he was talking crap about the Jehovah's Witnesses. Meanwhile, he was conspiring with Jehovah's Witnesses, Bruce's family. See, this is why, you know, when I look at these hypocrites, when I look at these people, you know, especially when you know, as far as I knew, you know, I only knew what was going on in their lives when I would see them. You know what I mean? I never pried into their life, but they made it their priority to pry into mine. They were angry because they knew that I had, you know, the ability to stand up on my own, and they hated that. They hated that. They hated the fact that, you know, and it wasn't about me trying to be defiant. It was simply the fact that of course, I needed to survive. You know what I mean? But, you know, you get this sick mentality of people who feel as though, well, this is something only Christians can have. Only Christians, and they feel as though that they can take things that belong to you. And with this sick pathological view of, well, I'm entitled to it because I'm a Christian. Not because God is granting it to them. They are just sitting here taking it. You know what I mean? That is obviously a form of terrorism. Like, you know, when you deal with that sort of bullying and you know that this sort of bullying is coming from what people that you thought were your family. Okay, that is a form of trauma that I deal with. I deal with a lot of that trauma. You know what I mean? A lot of it. Especially, you know, knowing the fact that this man was what he was. And also, okay, the fact that, you know, this man's a racist. He marries my sister. And what bothers me is the fact that he raises these children, these horrible children, both of his children, my nephew, or what I thought was my nephew, as well as my niece, okay? These children are monsters, okay? And I knew that they were monsters. They never, ever treated me with any respect whatsoever, okay? But if you were that much of a racist, why in the world would you marry someone like that? To me, it's like you are so outright evil. But he understood what being a Christian would get him. He knew that he knew that marrying my sister somehow it would get him some sort of like maybe some sort of place in the Nazi spy group or what. I don't know what it was. But he always did things for his own benefit. You know what I mean? It was always selfish. And see, this is why I always had this aversion towards Christians like that. You know, people who are just like, gimme, 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 gimme. And I understand, like, what I'm saying is, like, you know, to me, spirituality is a lot different than what I'm looking at as his religion. To use it as an excuse to abuse people, to use it as an excuse to get things, to use it as a card of where, you know, this is some sort of entitlement that I have. You know what I mean? To me, it just becomes like this sick, I don't know, mental illness is what it is. And this is how what it spirals into. You know, you got people conspiring against people like, you know, in the case of, it's hypocritical for him to sit here and join forces with, like, you know, my ex boyfriend, my son's father or whatever, when he was like so hell bent against me having anything to do with women. They're not, their religions are not the same, you know what I mean? But like I said, when you're dealing with hypocrites and you're dealing with people who are just, pathological anyway, okay? It becomes like, well, our common thread, our common goal is that we don't like Maria. It's like we're joining forces against this person. Which to me, I don't care however you slice it. Okay. Obviously, I am someone who has not had anything to do with any of these people on my own free time. So when I look at the sick plots and schemes and the evil death traps that they were trying to set for me, it's like it's just hands down, you can't forgive that sort of stuff, right? But some people would, and I'm trying to like express my view on certain things that are forgivable and certain things that are not. You know what I mean? Um, and in that case, I don't forgive that. I would say that's like a big part of my trauma. The part of, you know, you never know who you bring into your family. Now, like I said, when my sister was dating um, Jim, I was a teenager. I think it was like the spring of my sixth grade year is when he came rolling into the picture. Like my sister was going out to the college and then they started dating and I was a teenager and I know that I would go to their church, I'd get invited to their church and I would visit and whatever. And then they ended up getting married when I was going into the ninth grade, and I just, you accept them as your family. You know what I mean? That's just it. You know, you just never realize what people are. And that's a trip to me. And the same thing with my sister Lisa's husband. And when I think about it, I forgot. I keep forgetting that I was married too. I believe that my ex husband was also, affiliated with not white Nazi groups and everything else, and when I was thinking about how um okay, I do understand like a lot of white supremacist men I've read, are very abusive towards the women. Now, and why it might, okay, I don't know. I'm not going to sit here. I've never like really studied it, but this is just my theory, okay? Is that I do understand, like we were talking about in one of my videos, I think it was like the alien video. I was talking about how, white people have a hard time like reproducing, and just like these alien races that rely on cloning, I think it has a lot to do with maybe their desire to um, keep their race going, right? But in this case, where we are dealing with my brother-in-law marrying my sister Tanya, then he's basically producing a child of mixed race, right? Which originally, according to the Nazi group that started all of this, was something that they wouldn't have done in the first place, right? So we see these hypocrites going against their own principles, you know what I mean? But see, this is where none of this makes sense. And see, I notice that when people make these decisions or they affiliate with certain groups, they join and they don't really know why they're going. And I understand why he went. He wanted clout. Okay. He wanted all the great things that these affiliations would get him. Okay. He gets to rub noses with, elbows with, important people. He gets to talk to like celebrities and all this other stuff. Right. But when I was talking about my video like last night or the night before, I was talking about morality. Okay. I was talking about morality, and morality, as far as my spiritual life, it matters. Okay. Some people think that I'm geeky. I don't think I'm geeky. You know what I mean? But I'm saying is because I'm a very peaceful person and somebody who takes responsibility for their life. Meaning, instead, there's been times where I've been down. We've all known this. Okay. I've had people take from me, people who want to waste my time, bringing them into job, or people who want to taunt me, do all these sort of things to me. I would never resort to anything like that. Okay. I would never do any of those sort of things ever. Okay. And this is the difference between what I've noticed with me and people who, such as my brother-in-law, okay, and people who are like him, with people like, the people who were a part of his little group, his little clique group, okay. There's a certain people, okay, who have this kind of bloodlust, okay, and they hide behind religious groups to act it out. And the sick part is when I think about it, it's like, okay, Jim Culligan is one of these people. Okay, he knew good and well he was throwing me into a death plot. Okay, and I think a lot of like Christians, they enjoy that covert, let's do this, and then, hype ourselves up to act like we're doing this and it's a righteous thing. You know what I mean? And this is the sick mentality of these people. You know what I mean? Knowing good and well they don't ever crack open a Bible. The only thing that's fueling them to do this is their own desire to, satisfy either their jealousy, their jealous tendencies, or whatever. So hang on a second. Yeah, I'm still sitting here in the dark, kind of checking and squinting. I'm not even wearing my glasses. I'm kind of squinting, making sure that I'm not stopping the recording. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, I'm brain dumping right now because that's a lot to deal with. You know what I mean? Why? Because I feel as though what I lived through, what some people might think, oh, it's not a big deal. But when you think about people who are bullying you online, you think about these people spread my name everywhere. Okay. And I understand the part about the Nazi thing and all this other stuff. And when I think about that, that is very traumatizing to me, extremely traumatizing to me, because not just my brother-in-law, but the people that I used to know, I never thought of them as Nazis, but that's exactly what they were. You know what I mean? And that's mind blowing to me. It is mind blowing to me, that someone as peaceful such as myself, you know what I mean, who doesn't do anything. Literally, I don't. The kids that I used to go to high school with, like, I don't meddle into their personal life. You know what I mean? But a lot of these people got involved in it because of Jim Culligan, because of whatever, and they like I said, the group think. Okay, the group think is always going to lead people into terrible territories. You know what I mean? And whatever. So yeah, that I needed to talk about and get that off my chest, because um, there's a lot of unresolved issues that go on in my mind. Okay. Some people think, bullying at work, it's not that big of a deal, but it is a big deal. It is a big deal. It is very much like somebody threatening your life. It is very much like somebody threatening your life because somebody prevents you from being able to pay your bills. So to survive, Christianity is like this genocide group is what I'm looking at, when I'm thinking about it in terms of what, Jim Culligan is involved in, what he gets excited about. And he used to brag about being a Christian, and this is what he's bragging about. He's like a big dog in his mind. I mean, I can take people out. I can do this shit in like a covert manner. He feels good about that sort of stuff. You know what I mean? I'm disgusted by these people that I used to know. And I get angry sometimes because I wish so bad that I can put them in, just line them up and scream at them and yell at them, possibly gouge their eyes out. Okay? Because these issues are not resolved. Not completely. You know what I mean? And it's my way of healing. So anyway, I just needed to say that. Come on here. And it's the healthiest thing to do, to talk about it, to get it out. Yeah, it is. Okay. What else did I want to say really quick before I wrap up this video? That was on my mind, today, and I a lot of other things come to my mind too. I think about it's a fact that nobody ever thought this through. The fact that people were so willing to accept something, as truth just because it made them feel good. You know what I mean? I'm going to go more into these sort of issues in some of these projects that I'm working on, but right now, I just needed to get this out of my head. So anyway, I'm going to wrap this video up. And I just wanted to say what I wanted to say. I hope you have a great evening. Take care. Good night.